So, as we said, Eighth Time is a Tree of Life. It's a very diverse document. And this portion that we read this week is as diverse as it gets. Rabbi Kaptower is going to give an introduction. I think it's really important for what we're going to be talking about, because you also have the laws of the Nazarite. That's going to be part of this, and then the part that I'm going to read, which should sound really familiar, and I won't share that just yet. Rabbi?
So we're reading this week out of Parshat Naso, which talks a lot about purity of different forms. And that purity comes in the form of bodily health concerns and also spiritual concerns. And purity isn't exactly what we think it is, but I'm not going to get in the Torah world, but I'm not going to get into all of that. The point is, though, that some of the tests in here can be kind of brutal and a little bit causing of pain and exclusion to people when people are discovered to not be pure in the way that they are being tested. So some of that is about those who have skin afflictions like leprosy. And another sort of famous part that we're going to be reading in Bethel tomorrow morning is about the Sotah, the woman who is suspected of having been an adulteress. And even in just being suspected in that way, she is put through this really shameful kind of public humiliation test. Even if she's, regardless of whether she's innocent or not, right? And this, for me, talks about the way that sometimes our higher ideals that we strive for, health, devotion, faithfulness, these things can actually be more obscure than promoted in the way that we pursue them. And so when we pursue ideals of health and safety and community and faithfulness in ways that are harmful by doing purity testing, right, we actually obscure that which is our goal. And so, for example, in wanting to have positive, healthy relationships between partners, right, by putting someone through this rigorous, shameful adultery test, right, we're not really building towards a positive relationship. And so I think that this is so important to discuss today, and it turns out that Rabbi Klein and I are having similar thoughts because he's going to be talking about this in his Torah study tomorrow, and I, in looking up what I might talk about today, realized that found that I had spoken about this a few years ago, so it's an ongoing important topic. But today, I think we see this in the polarization of our politics, both in the U.S. and in election year especially, and in the Jewish community around Israel. We can do things like purity testing by sort of doing like litmus tests, like, well, what do you think about this issue? And sussing people out. Are you really one of us or are you not, right? Are you in or you're out? And we do these kind of purity tests that sometimes can get to the level of public shaming, like, oh, because you believe this, you're out. You're not one of ours. It's a kind of a purity test. Do you really belong with our people? Are you with our values? And in doing that, those kind of testing, kind of like catching people out, we're actually obscuring the ideals that we are really trying to pursue, which is peace and strength of community and strength of our ideals, equality for all people. And so I think it's so important as we think about those readings to think about the ways in which we ourselves conduct purity tests, intentionally or unintentionally, and the ways that those might actually obscure our real intentions, our real values that we're trying to pursue in building community, building positive relationships. How can we give people the benefit of the doubt rather than conducting tests like they did in the Sotah days? And the piece that Rabbi Mark is going to read from Naso, I think, is making the end of that. If we don't conduct a purity test, then we might get to the words like we see in the priestly blessing, which is in which all people are ultimately blessed in the eyes of God, in which God turns God's face unto us, right? And God's face can only truly turn unto us when we seek one another out with love and with unity, right? Because each of us are the face of God. Each of us are the image of God. So, and
So much for surprise.
oh, I'm sorry.
would lead services with one in my arm and one here, and this is delightful. I'll come back now here. I'm going to be reading from the priestly benediction, words that you should recognize. I am told because you've heard them, because I've used them. Rabbis love using these words, but I would just share we sometimes use them out of traditional context, and I say traditional in quotation marks, because they're only supposed to be used by the Kohanim, the high priests. And in the middle of the service, you're going to make the service in Orthodox services, because you're part of the service, so they call the Kohanim up, come up and do this. And you're recognizing, you don't understand it, because they do, you all know where this comes from, right? Long before there was ever a Kohen, there was Shabbat. Right? And where else? Morgan Mindy, right? Not new. And so, how people trace their lineage, I'm not sure. But that being said, it is, I think, Charles said, the idea that we talk about that sort of the stuff that's really difficult that gets in the way, Torah says, our shame debate. And if we do that debate and participate in taking better care of each other, then we get to this place of blessing. So, with that, Gloria, if you will do the honors, please. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל אהרון ואל בניו לאמור, כה תברכו את בני ישראל, אמור להם, it's not really in the shulchan. יברכך אדוני וישמרך, יאר אדוני פניו אליך וחזקך, יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישמך שלום, ושמחו את שמי על בני ישראל, ואני אנוכם. So, God says to Moses, say to Aaron and to his children, by the way, the Hebrew is ambiguous. Well, it calls him masculine often. Banav doesn't mean his sons, it means his children, which means there could be female priests, something we don't talk about it, but we should be. Anyway, said to them, and bless all of the children of Israel, saying, may God bless you and keep you, may God's light shine for you, be gracious to you, may God turn God's face and give you peace. And thus, my influence as God will be upon the people of Israel, and I will bless you. God's speaking so. Okay? Amen. That's right. Thank you, God, for blessing us with peace. Amen. And I'm praying as well for the many people who are going to be who are on this list, and all the people around the world. People who are suffering as hostages to hate, people who are being brutalized, whether who are sick, who are ill, injured, and tired. Those close to us, people who we know and love, specifically mentioning Saeed Ben-Sahara, Lee Greenstock, Irvin Troy DuPont, Ricky Fox, Lois Gallowitz, Henry Gordon, Ira Parks Jr. are not coming up on listening to you. Tell me that you're really do well. Susan Hartman, Lois Klein, Herschel Muka, Reeves, Rick Rosenbaum, Cheryl Sachs-Allen, Marianne Sherman, Snyder, and Arlene Young. Are there other people that are holding the prayer? Please share their names. There are so many people who need. As people of faith, our job isn't to say the words of this prayer and say, go God. But if you've heard a name that you recognize or you've heard, you know a plight that you can help, in fact, please, if you need here, let's go do something to make the words of our prayer become real in our lives. Abraham Joshua Heschel said that prayer has to be subversive. It has to take us from complacency, from simply saying the words, to doing something that matters. May that be the gift that we return to offer prayer for us. So, Lori, I asked you to be honored at Torah because as we've been experiencing the last several weeks, when members of this community come up with a mission, a project that we should document as a congregation, we cherish that. Our projects, our social justice, social action, our healing projects shouldn't come from the crowd. They should come from our membership and be driven by our top. And we've seen business students do it. We've seen our confirmation class commit to continuing to teach in religious school next year. And when we brought this project first to the board, I said, this is
Thank you, Rabbi, and thank you to Dean Green for here tonight, for giving me the blessing of talking tonight. After October 7th, I felt there was a metal collar around my heart, and I'm sure most of you did also. I couldn't help the people in Israel, but mainly the rape survivors, the people that survived the brutal attacks on October 7th. And I couldn't, my heart just wouldn't heal. So I came up with this idea, I don't know where it came from, probably from God, of finding a small organization in Israel that would be able to help the rape survivors, not for a day or a week or a month, for a long time. And I didn't know where to start looking, so I reached out to my friend Sally Jo Braun, who, if any of you are friends on Facebook with Sally Jo, know that every day since October 7th, she's posted many, many things about the Israeli citizens, the hostages, the survivors, kept us with knowledge about it. And Sally Jo was kind enough to put a post on her Facebook page about what I was looking for. We got a hit from one of Sally Jo's friends in Israel, a therapist, who was helping the rape survivors. And I called the number. It's actually a good thing I didn't get through because that telephone bill would have been awful. It didn't fit exactly with what we were looking for. It was a group that was helping the Holocaust survivors long term. It was wonderful, but not exactly what I was looking for. So I went back in 3 weeks and I Googled again. And every time you Google, you find different things. I found it. I found it on a site that was, of all things, talking about an event that was happening in the San Francisco Bay Area. It was honoring 2 women. One of the women was Miriam Shiller, who was the executive director of the Tel Aviv Sexual Assault Crisis Center. Like Golda, Miriam grew up in America. She was not like Golda, she was the child of Holocaust survivors. And she had a mission which she stuck to her whole life. And that was, together we can repair a broken world. The article was written about women of young Judea. Miriam made Aliyah in her 20s, moved to Israel, graduated university in Israel, and eventually started working for the Tel Aviv Center. After a period of time in the 1990s, she became the executive director of the center, and she is still the executive director today, 20 years later. When I found the site and I was really interested in the center, I wanted to find validation because often you see sites on the internet and you don't know if this is a really secure agency. So I found something about the Jewish Healthcare Foundation, which is actually housed in Pittsburgh. The Jewish Healthcare Foundation gave a $25,000 grant to the Tel Aviv Center. And I knew that this was valid. And so I reached out to the office of the Tel Aviv Center. I didn't get a reply. 3 days later, I sent an email to Miriam Schler, and I got an answer in 2 days. Miriam said to me that personally and professionally, she wanted to thank me because in that period of such darkness, the kind people that reached out to them were the ones that are letting the light in. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the center. It was the first rape center in Israel. As in the United States is an association of rape centers. The Tel Aviv Sexual Assault Center was the first. It's now the largest. They do groundbreaking work to help survivors. They have a hotline that's manned strictly by volunteers, 250 volunteers working 24/7. Anytime they want to reach out, somebody's there to answer the phone. And it's not just for women. It's for men, it's for ultra-Orthodox men and women, which a lot of centers don't reach out to. They are an NGO, what we call a 501c3 nonprofit. And one of the things people ask about a nonprofit, of course, is where do they get their funding? 40% of the funding, believe it or not, is self-generated. So how can you have a fundraising event when the country is at war? That money went way down. 30% is funded by the government. That also went down because of their obvious other expenses. And 30% is funded by foundations and federations, of which, of course, the Jewish Federation of North America has given millions and millions of dollars. I read it again the other day, and I was really troubled by the fact that private donations and small company donations are only 4%. Well, part of my mission is to drive that number up. They have tripled their support groups, which they call resilience groups, since October 7th. I know from going to a bereavement group, there's nothing like sitting with people who have gone through the same thing you're going through, especially if it's something horrific. And that's what groups do. You can turn around to somebody and they understand what you're talking about, but other people do not. Also, of course, the issue of trust. It's going to take a long time for them to get back and deal with that. The center also goes, of course, a number of people have been displaced. They're in hotels, they're in a lot, they're in communities, and the center goes there to find them. They can't wait. I mean, the survivors don't have the ability to come to them, so they're going out in the field and finding them. Another interesting thing they're doing, medical professionals are not trained to deal with the kind of rape that is brutal, where your pelvic bones are broken. They need to be retrained for this. And the center is conducting classes, and Sally Jo, you correct me if I'm wrong, Boring Line University. It's a 3-year class, and it teaches the mental professionals how to understand, how to deal with, how to help them. On a personal note, I've been suffering with generalized anxiety disorder for most of my life. And many people come to me and say, I don't want to seek professional help. I said, why not? You don't want to feel better? They said, no, I don't want to go through the pain again of reliving the anxiety episode. But I know that the only way you're going to get any kind of healing is to talk about what happened and talk about it with a skilled person. I can't comprehend the courage that these rape survivors have when they're seeking professional help to relive that horrific experience. But I do know that the least we can do is be by their side and make sure that the organizations that are helping them possibly heal and who are praying for the healing have the resources to do that. I hope you will join us for another Shabbat in Sisterhood Hall. We've repointed Sisterhood Hall, which is great. My friends have helped me provide that. I will have a table there with information, more information about the center. And I will talk to you if you feel that you want to help. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
It's amazing, or maybe just one line on that, top of that. With all of the political divide, when it comes down to taking care of humans in need, it doesn't have to matter. You know? None of the political stuff matters. Whatever side you are on the war, whatever you think about, red, blue, whatever, what we just talked about, or we just shared, people in need. And that's the human condition. Folks, I admonish us
or just holding in their hearts some pain in the world, to please rise as we say the words of
Page 598.
The list of the yard sites that are being observed here, and then if there's anyone else who's observing yard sites present on the list, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll see your name. Hannah Abramson, Arlene Bonin, Tassos Koulianos, Jean Goldberg, Beatrice Goldsmith, Ellen Brody Hughes, Margaret Kelly, Joseph Levy, Marcus Rosenbaum. So anyone else who's on
Page 598. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Announcements, we've got our annual meeting coming next week, the 25th. We will do live and hybrid. And you notice the big screens that we have here. We got one that just arrived, the other one in the City Hall. So the meetings that are hybrid, we don't have to bring in somebody else's equipment, and you don't have to see it on the screen like this and try to decipher the Hollywood squares. So we want to make it so that everybody can participate. We have really exciting new members of the board that are going to be taking office. We have bylaws to vote on. There's a lot that's going to happen. And I want to just make sure that you reach out to the people who have been serving the last 2 years through, we'll call them interesting times. Your leadership has done yeoman's duty above and beyond in fixing things that we didn't even know were broken until we were already deep in the middle of it. So if you want to know what it means to love a congregation, look at the people who have been serving on our coming up. We've got next Friday night, we are at the ballpark. We're going to be doing services under the stands, and then we'll see a game together. Last year it rained, but it only rained during the service, and everyone was dry except me, because I had to stand. I remember you guys helped me, right? Yeah, so we're looking for better weather, but it was a lot of fun. We had 60-some odd people show up last year. It was a good time, a nice way to spend Shabbat. Calendar stays very full throughout the summer, so please, Tuesday emails, the website, the calendar is available. Check out what's going on and join us for some of it. You've seen the flyer. It's not too early to make plans for the annual picnic, because the annual picnic is that time. I think we had about 150 people last year. Yeah. That we counted. Yeah. So it's a great time for everybody. Any other announcements from Bethel?
Just in particular things that folks from Omaha, of course, are always welcome to join us for anything. But next week, I know you guys will be having services here Friday night, but on Saturday as well. Next Shabbat, we're having a visitor from these two Israeli rabbis. They're Masorti rabbis. They work in Jerusalem, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with Nava Tequila. They are in Jerusalem that play really beautiful spiritual services. And so these rabbis play with them as well. So if you're interested to come to services with them, they'll be here. And then if, of course, you'll be here Friday night, but if you want to come, you are at the ballpark, right? Very important, very important. So Saturday, you can also come, and also later in the afternoon when we have Kiddush together, which is usually like around 12 Kiddush, I think they're going to be talking about, their perspective on living in Jerusalem since October 7th. So if that's of interest to you, you're more than welcome. And then hopefully we're going to be doing some Pride celebrations together. Bethel is going to do our Pride Shabbat for the community on the 28th. And then I think, because I'll be away for Harrisburg Pride this year, so then hopefully we'll get to celebrate Pride with you guys here as well around the time of Harrisburg Pride. But if you want to come and celebrate Pride with us, join me on June 20th. Please do Friday night outdoors.
And there are going to be some dates this summer that you're not here, I'm not here, we're going to each other. Those are being published, and then there's 1 week that neither of us are here,
Right.
and y'all get to figure out what to do.
Long down there.
We're going to close tonight. You and I, we can change the world. Margaret Mead said, don't ever think that a few committed people can't change the world, because in fact, it's the only thing that ever has. And so folks, we need to stand together, to be together. Nida Assad can be found back of the book. Hold on 1 second. I've got on page 652. We got lots of talent, and we celebrate all of it. And of course, it wouldn't be Shabbat the last several weeks without homemade Susan Thomas. Folks, not only is you, but you got it. Okay? And it's just delicious. So, first of all, the words we read from Torah tonight, may God bless us and keep us. May God's light shine for us. May we know God's grace. May God's presence be with us as we change the world and create that blessing of peace. Amen. Amen. You're in charge of that. Now, y'all, when we're done here, we're going across the way because we're going to do the stuff that's most Jewish, and that is eat. I love it. So let's celebrate Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you.